All right, good morning. I'm Aaron Heiser, Maker's Leather Supply. And this video, we're going to talk about our new biker wallet templates. I say we're going to talk about it. We're going to build a biker wallet, and it's going to be pretty awesome. This is a pattern I've used before, but I kind of wanted to tweak it some before I actually built out a template set and let other people give a go at it, because if I'm not happy with the design, then I don't want to make a template that other people are going to use. So anyway, we did some tweaking to it and everything, and I really like it now. That being said, it makes me wish I still have my motorcycle so I'd have an excuse to carry a biker style wallet. um, anyway, the template set is 5 pieces total. Okay. This right here is just one of the inside pockets. You notice this big cutout here. We'll go over that in a minute. But what that is actually where you can stick an ink pen in there and draw a stitch line to follow later on during the construction. This is the card pocket part of it. It holds 6 cards. I mean, you could double stuff them if you wanted and make it hold 12 or whatever, but it has 6 card slots. And so that's that one. This is a zippered pouch. Basically, you're going to cut this piece out. We'll install a zipper right here, fold it in half, and it'll be a zippered pouch. And then this is the wallet back pieces. I built it in 2 pieces so that it wouldn't get broken in shipping, because this piece right here kind of puzzles into that piece right there, and then you have the whole thing. Anyway, and then it's got a little hole on it for your snap, and then a corresponding hole over here where it would wrap around the wallet and snap closed. But anyway, we'll go over all that as we're building it. That being said, the first thing I would normally cut out would be this piece. I'm going to move this camera because you don't care about my face, but you do care about what's on my desk here. The first thing I would cut out would be this piece here, and unfortunately, I actually have already cut it out because I needed to know where exactly that hole was going to be. So I went ahead and cut one out, and I folded it up and everything, made sure everything was right, and then marked where that hole would be for the other part of the snap, and then went back over to the machine that makes the templates, and I added that hole in there so that I would know where it is. So now I know where the hole is, and it's good to go. But you did miss me cutting this piece out. Just like all of our other templates, it says on here what kind of leather you should use for this. And this is anywhere from 4 to 6 ounce, just depending on how heavy duty you really want it to be. This is about a 5.5 to 6 ounce piece of leather right here. This is we're going to make this wallet out of English bridle. We got in all this Wicked Craig English bridle not long ago, and I am just so excited to try this stuff out. So I figured, why not? While we're making a really nice, high quality wallet, why not try this English bridle out? Because it's amazing leather. Anyway, so yes, that piece is already cut out, so I can take that template and set it aside. On these, I will mention this. On the template, that hole is not huge. It's actually pretty small. I made it just big enough that I could put a stylus in that hole and mark where that hole would be on the leather. Unless you have just a really, really, really tiny hole punch, you're not going to be able to punch it through the template without breaking the template. We have had several people have called us and, oh, I'm sorry, you didn't take into account the taper of the hole punch, and I broke a template. And okay, no problem, we'll hook you up. But you gotta be careful with that kind of stuff. These are they're still made of acrylic. They're not indestructible by any means. So sorry, I see a place I need to trim that a little bit. All right, so anyway, I'm going to take my scalpel here, though, and I'm going to go ahead and cut out the rest of the pieces of this template set. We'll start with the zippered pouch. It's pretty simple. This is a 1/2 inch wide area right here by 7 inches long. Okay, this is perfectly made for a 7-inch zipper. We did that because 7-inch zippers are very readily available. They're easy to find. Walmart has them. I got this particular one at Hobby Lobby for $1.99, and it's a very nice, high quality zipper. They did have some 99-cent zippers for those that really want to save some money, but you're also going to be saving on your quality as well. So spend that extra dollar, get the $2 zipper. It's a better zipper. All right, so what we're gonna do here is I kind of just pre-cut some larger pieces so that I didn't have a whole side of leather over here for the video. This piece right here can be one of these. And what I'm going to do is I'll go ahead and take my scalpel and cut around the exterior of this, and then I'll worry about, and we'll talk about doing the inside there. But I am going to use a scalpel because it is the ultimate of exacting tools, I guess you could say. It really gets in there right up against the template and doesn't allow any extra room. On this pattern, I went ahead and radiused the corners on the template. I've had several folks ask about it on the wallets and everything. They're like, "Oh, why don't you radius the corners so they're not sharp?" Well, I'd explained in those videos too that normally I radius it after I build the wallet, and that way all the corners match up and everything. But it just seems that more people would rather have it radiused beforehand. So that's what we now have. If it works out, that's great. If it does not work out, then hey, I'll go back and re-square these corners for folks, and future ones will be made with the square corners again. The ultimate goal in all of these patterns and templates is always what's going to work best for you. I want to make them easy. I want to help people be able to make a better product by providing them with the best product I can. So yeah. Probably shouldn't be trying to cut ambidextrously here, but sometimes it's just easier, and I don't like moving the template if I don't have to. This piece of leather is 2 to 3 ounce. Like I said, it is English bridle. Anybody that's not familiar with the bridle leathers, it is vegetable tanned, but then after it was vegetable tanned, they hot stuffed it with wax, and it's got a really nice feel and texture to it. I mean, it's got all the rigidity of good vegetable tanned leather, but yet it's got all the smooth and softness of other types of leathers, I guess you could say. And so, I mean, it just really is amazing stuff to work with. This is the other reason I don't like radius corners. They're just harder to cut out. But they're probably harder to cut out because I normally don't do them off the template like this. Come on, buddy. You know you want to. There we go. 3 sides down. Probably should have changed the blade in my scalpel before I started all this. Then y'all wouldn't be watching me struggle trying to cut this thing out. All right, but there we have it. Okay, got a little bit of fuzz on these corners that I can cut off here. Okay, now, again, this is a half-inch wide space in the middle of this for the zipper area, okay? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to mark that area with a stylus or a pen. I will use a stylus because I got one right here. And I'm going to just mark these ends, okay? I am not going to take my half-inch punch and put it in here because The gap is a 1/2 inch. So if you try to take a 1/2 inch punch and put it in a 1/2 inch gap, you will crack the template. So I would rather not do that. So I just marked those 2 edges there. I'm going to take my 1/2 inch hole punch here. Oh, I'm going to get my cutting board because I don't like punching over the mat. Make sure it's good and centered over my marks there. And there's that. So there's one side and the other side. Now I'm actually going to take my template and put it back on top. And I will cut my lines using the template as a guide. Okay. For folks that have never sewn in a zipper, this is pretty much as easy as it gets for sewing one in. It's real nice that you can do it all flat and then you fold it in half. So it's going to be pretty easy to follow. I will be hand sewing this entire wallet to include the zipper. I was going to cheat and use a sewing machine on the zipper, but I also like to prove to people that, hey, you don't have to have a sewing machine to build it. It does help. It does make it faster, but depending on what your hand sewing looks like, it might look a little bit more professional using a sewing machine. But I'm a firm believer that everybody should learn to hand stitch as well as they can, because sometimes you just can't get a machine to do what you need it to do if it's a hard angle or a small space or something like that. All right. So there's that piece. It is now cut out and good to go. Let me get that little shaving there where I double lined it. So there it is. There's the zippered piece. It is now cut out. It is now ready. And we will move on to the credit card pocket. You get a piece of leather here. All right, this piece of leather has a little bit of a flaw in it right there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure when I cut this template out that is going to be on the side that is folded over, and it'll be on basically the inside of a pocket. So it's not going to be a big deal. Just like our other wallet type templates, there's a big rectangle cut out right here. Do not cut out that rectangle. That rectangle is only to help you draw your lines on the back of the template to know where to put your tape and to run your Tyvek or your ribbon or whatever you're going to use to hold those cards up. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and cut this out right quick. And then we'll move on to doing the card pockets, or cutting them, I guess, because we're not going to run the Tyvek just yet until everything's cut out. You know, doing our Monday night live videos is way better than making these YouTube videos, because at least Janie's talking to me and folks are responding and stuff like that when I'm doing this. Just kind of weird to be talking to yourself in a room. All right. Now, just like on previous videos with this style of card pockets, I'm going to take a small hole punch and I'm going to punch my holes through the template where you see the big round holes here. Okay. When you do that, you need to make sure that the cutting end of your hole punch goes all the way through the template, all the way through. Okay, if it just barely fits in there, then when you go to strike that, it's going to break the template. And so you just got to be aware of that. It's okay if your punch doesn't quite fit in there. You can always mark those holes with a stylus and then come back, take the template off, and punch them all out. All right. I'm going to go ahead and give these a whack here. And I'm always checking the template to make sure it's still straight because I don't want my card pockets to be crooked. Switch hands here so that my hand's holding down the template well. All right. I'm very carefully going to rotate this. Nope, not as careful as I thought I'd be. So I'll just line up all those holes I just punched again. Line up the edges of my template, make sure we're all good. And then I'm going to cut the card slots. Again, I have made these templates just perfect for a scalpel blade. It's a very thin blade. X-Acto knives may work. I'm not sure. I don't own one. But I made them for scalpel blades because honestly, a scalpel is an amazing tool for this thinner leather, this 2 to 3 ounce. It's very accurate. And then the best part is blades are cheap. You can always use one, and when it starts to get dull, throw it away, use another one. So that's why I make these for scalpel blades, mostly for the accuracy. If I made this slot really wide so that you could fit a box cutter or a head knife or something big like that in there, then your lines wouldn't be as straight when you cut them, and your card pockets wouldn't be as accurately placed because there's just too much room for play in there. All right, there we are. I'm going to make sure that those cut apart. This one needs a little help. And we are good on the card pocket piece. Okay, we'll come back to it in just a minute, and we'll run our material on the backside of it to hold all the cards. But I'm not done cutting pieces out yet, so I'm going to continue on with that. Okay, so we'll set that one aside for now. All right, and then this pocket again, we kind of discussed it just a second ago. A lot of this pocket will not even be seen on the outside of the, or on the, if the wallet is open, most of this pocket will be hidden. So if you've got some leather that's maybe less than desirable, or it's got a flaw on it or something, excuse me, the mail lady's here. How's it going? All right, folks, sorry about that. So anyway, we're going to cut out this pocket piece here, get them all out of the way. And just like everything else, we're just going to go ahead and cut out the outside, but then we're going to flip it over and trace that stitch line on the back side of it. All right. Get out the basic shape. Get this cutting board out of here. I think I'm done with it. Again, I'm just going to flip it over now, and I'll use a ballpoint pen. Put the template back on it there. And I'm just going to draw that line. I tried to leave it just wide enough that a pen will barely fit in there. I'm sure pens will vary, but just about every one of them I have in the shop works in that. So there it is. That's going to be your stitch line. I know that's hard to understand right this second, but you'll understand it better in a few. So now we're going to switch gears a little bit, and I'm going to have to grab some Tyvek right quick. I forgot to grab it before the video, but we're going to do the card pockets on this piece. So give me just a second to get what I actually need, and I'll be right back. Okay, sorry about that. I did get some Tyvek. Tyvek is that stuff they wrap houses in and buildings to kind of pre-insulate them on the outside and weatherproof the wood a little bit, I think. Anyway, that's what I like to use for my wallet interiors because it's really, really thin. You can use fabric, you can use ribbon. My problem with fabric is it frays. My problem with ribbon is that it gets really thick once there's a bunch of layers of it back here. So, Tyvek it is for me. What we are going to do here is we're going to mark our lines for where our double-sided tape will go so that we can run these Tyvek pieces back here and hold our cards. It's going to be kind of mundane. If you've watched our videos before, then you already probably know how to do this. You might skip ahead a few minutes. But if this is the first one of our videos you've watched, then this is an important detail here. Again, we didn't cut out this big rectangle here because it's actually used right here on the back of the wallet for marking where your Tyvek is going to go. Okay, and I'm going to kind of cheat since there's 2 rows of them here. I'm just going to set this template up to where it goes over both sides at the same time, and that way I'm not drawing 6 lines. I'll only draw 3. But what you're going to do is you put the very top of this rectangle right at each of those card cuts that we cut out, okay? And then you just draw a line at the bottom of the rectangle, okay? Right up against the edge of it there. You do this on the back side of your leather, okay? This is the flesh side of the leather, not the pretty grain side. And this is, again, it's going to mark where your tape and everything is going to go on the back. It can be hard if your cuts are really fine. It can be hard to see where your cuts are, so you may have to adjust a little bit for that. All right, so I have marked those 3 lines, and again, there would be 3 under this side, 3 under that side, but I just kind of cheated and went in between the 2, and that way I can see where they are. You do have to make sure that you put your tape very parallel to the cut lines, otherwise your credit cards are not going to set in there straight. To prepare this, I'm going to take, I have 14 pieces of double-sided tape over here. Okay, each of them is roughly the width of the card cutouts. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and place one just above each of my rows of cuts. So there'll be one here and another one right here, and it goes directly above the rows of cuts. Okay, and that'll actually be the very last one you use when you finish off your running of your Tyvek. And then I'll take one of each, and I will put one of each one of them directly below each of these cuts. Okay, so that's going to be 6 more pieces of the double-sided tape here. But just right up almost against that line, just a hair under it. So there's one side. Might as well just go ahead and do the other side while I'm doing it here. I've had a thought here while I was doing this. Is like, man, if I had a big wide piece of Tyvek, maybe I could do both of these at once. But honestly, I think it might even be too big, and you probably wouldn't get nice straight creases and things like that. So I will run 2 different rows of Tyvek, one for each set of card pockets. Again, each of these 6 pieces that I'm laying down right now are directly below the card cuts, okay? And then to prepare to finish the preparation to start running that Tyvek, I'm going to put my last 2 pieces for now are going to go directly above that very bottom line that I drew. Okay, when they're going with cuts, they go below the cut. When they're on the lines, they go above the lines. Okay. So there we are. All right. So I'm going to take my Tyvek. I'm just going to do one of these sides on the video. And then, again, it's pretty repetitious. If you need to see it again, you can always go back a little bit on the video. But I'm not going to make everybody sit and watch me do it twice. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take the double-sided tape off of that very first card cut, okay? Not that very top one there because that's our finishing point, but the very first card cut up there. I'm sorry, I'm totally throwing you off here. The bottom one. We're going to start at the bottom and work our way up. So I'm going to take the tape, the backing, off of the very bottom card cut, okay? I'm going to take my Tyvek and I'm going to make sure that it is as perpendicular as I can make it to the face of the wallet, all right? So I'm going to run it and make sure it is just right along and straight with the wallet, because that will make sure that my cards are actually setting up straight like they ought to, and they're not crooked inside the wallet, okay? And I take and I lay it, and I mean, I've got just a little bit left, about ½ inch or so down here below it. That doesn't matter. But the reason I do that is because I wanted to be able to fold it back and have a nice crease right there at the top of the pocket cut, or the bottom of the pocket cut. Okay, so I'm going to crease it right there. Put a nice crease in it. That's the other thing I love about Tyvek. It creases just as well as paper does. Because I think it's more of a paper than a fabric. All right, so I'm going to bend it up there, and I'm going to take the backing off that very bottom piece of tape there. Okay, and I'm going to lay that Tyvek across it, and I want to make sure that it's not really loose right here and everything. It needs to be pulled down pretty tight. Not so tight that you're pulling at your double-sided tape here, but tight enough that there's not going to be any wrinkles and things like that. Okay. So I laid it down across that. Now I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to pull it back up, and I'm going to crease it right here, even with that bottom line. Just like that, okay? Now I'll fold it back down, and I'm going to go ahead and remove the backing off the tape from the middle card pocket. Okay, I'll pull it back up, once again, making sure that it doesn't have a bunch of wrinkles and bubbles in it, and I'm going to lay it right across there. And there it is. Okay. Next thing I'm going to have to do is I'll pull this back down, once again, creating my crease, getting it nice and snug up against that line. And then I'll throw it back over here for a second because I have to add a piece of tape right here. Okay, so I'm going to put another piece of tape just above the second line. So there it is. I've already creased this, so I'll go ahead and remove the backing off of the tape. And I will fold this down. Again, that piece of tape was just above that second line there. Okay, and when I come back, I'm going to crease it right at the second line, just like I did at the first line. Another crease. You got to make sure when you're doing this that your Tyvek is still running straight. You want it to lay parallel to the side of the wallet here. Otherwise, once again, it's going to have your cards looking all crooked, and that's not the professional result that you're looking for. So There it is. That was the second one. Okay, now that I've got that crease, I'll pull my piece of tape or my tape backing off of the very top card pocket there. I'm going to lay it across it. Then I'm going to pull it back down. And crease it again. And then just like the last one, I have to add one more piece of tape just above that top line that we've drawn. Got that one a little bit high, but it'll be all right as long as I put the crease in the right spot. All right, I'm going to fold it back up. To do this, it requires 13 inches of material, roughly. That's given just a little bit of extra, not much, but 13 inches long of material, and then the width of the material is just the same width as the card pockets. All right, now that I've done that and I've created my last crease there, I'm going to go up here to the very top and remove that backing from that very last piece of tape on this side. Lay it across it, and there it is. It is, this side is done. I'm just going to take my pair of scissors and kind of hold this up, and I'm just going to cut it kind of close to the where the tape is. It doesn't have to be exact by any means, but pretty close, because you're going to fold this thing in half, and you don't need your Tyvek caught up in your fold, because that'll just make it a little bit bulkier than it needs to be. All right, so again, I'm going to pause the video while I do the exact same thing on this side, and we'll come back at it. Okay, so again, I paused the video. I went ahead and ran the other side of Tyvek. One of the things I want to make sure that folks are very aware of is you've got to make sure that the bottoms of each of your fold lines on this Tyvek are right, that you could draw a line straight from one to the other, because you want those cards parallel. Otherwise, when they open the wallet, again, if one sits higher than the other and things like that, it's not as professional of a result. And we're all in this to get better with every project. So, okay. That didn't really change how the front of this piece of leather looked. That just added all the card pockets in behind. For anybody that's watching one of these videos for the first time, I'll show you here now. We can use, we put a card in there. Maybe I didn't cut that one good. There we go. We can put a card in there, and the card's going to sit right where it needs to. All right, and then that's kind of what it looks like on the back side. That card is in between those first two pieces of Tyvek there. Okay. All right, so now is the fun part. We get to construct this thing. It's my favorite part. I'm going to hand sew this one because, again, I want to prove that it can be done. I want people that do a lot of, or that don't have a sewing machine, to know that they can do any kind of project they want. They're not limited just because they don't own a sewing machine. I'm going to start, I guess, with the zippered pouch here. So I'm going to go ahead and pull my zipper off its little card that it goes on, hopefully without tearing it up. All right. So when this is done, I want this zipper to look just like this. Okay. So to achieve that, pull that back just a little bit there. I need to repunch these holes just a little bit and spread them out just a tiny bit more. My zipper doesn't quite fit as well as I want it to. So I'm going to take my hole punch, my maul, and I'm just going to take another 1/16, maybe 1/8 of an inch off on both ends, and then it should fit in there just fine. All right. Okay, so again, I want the zipper to set in here, just like this. I was kind of conflicted on what color of zipper to use. I'm doing brown here because out of the zippers I have in my possession right now, this is pretty much the best one. I want the base of the zipper to pretty much be right there up against the back end of the hole. And then the front of it is not as much of an issue. If it doesn't go all the way to the very end of the zipper itself, it's okay. Especially with how this is going to be built, it's not like the zipper is going to slide underneath the leather and you wouldn't be able to get a hold of it and pull it out. So anyway, now that I've checked for fit and everything and made sure that the zipper is going to fit really well, I'm going to use some double-sided tape, and I'm going to basically I'm going to temporarily affix the zipper to it so that I can hand stitch it on there. So grab off what I hope to be about 7 inches. Looks like I'm going to be a little bit short. This is okay. The zipper is 1 inch wide. The hole is a 1/2 inch wide, or excuse me, the part we've cut out there is a 1/2 inch wide. So what I want to do is take this double-sided tape and I want to put it just right on the very, very edge of the zipper's ribbon, I guess you could say, because I don't want this double-sided tape to show in that hole after it's sewn down. It's just the ultimate and unprofessional, I guess, if you've got that nice, shiny, gluey-looking tape sticking out in there. So I'm going to go ahead and cut just another little piece here that I want every bit of the zipper that's going to be sewn down to actually be held up against that leather tightly, because it'll make it a lot easier to sew if we do that. And sometimes it's easier to set this stuff down if you just open your zipper up. Now this area will lay down flat, and you can put that up against the edge like it needs to be. Because when the zipper's closed, it's got a nice big bubble right there, and it's hard to do that. All right, the second one I'm going to try to get the right length in one piece. We'll see. Better. All right, so we're going to do the exact same thing on the other side. Put that double-sided tape right on the edge of the zipper's fabric. If you put it down really lightly, then you can still move it. Just pull it up a little bit and move it if it's not right up on the edge like you want it. Okay, again, I'm going to open up the zipper so I can put a little bit more right there. All right. So I will close the zipper back. I will remove the double-sided tape, the backing from the double-sided tape, and then I will set my wallet piece over the zipper. I'll lay the zipper down flat and set the wallet piece over it. And hopefully that will get me a pretty accurate and straight. And again, if you do it gently and do it easy and don't press it on there too hard, then you can still move it. But if you press it on there, you're going to have a really hard time moving it if you're using the tape that we have. This stuff's pretty daggum sticky. So I want that zipper to be as centered as I can in there. Okay. See, I got stuck to it. I want that zipper to be as centered as I can, top and bottom there. And I want that back end there to be just right up against the back of the opening here. All right, got a good start here, it looks like. I'll go ahead and press that side down because I like it. I like where it's setting. Now I'll kind of worry about the other side here, which also looks pretty good. So I'm going to go ahead and press it down as well. All right, so I'm going to open that zipper up just a tiny, tiny bit so that the end of it's not trying to be under the leather there. And we're going to get ready to sew this piece. Okay. To sew it, I'm just going to go sew all the way around the outside of this right here. Again, I'm going to hand stitch it. I'm going to use 0.8 millimeter hand stitching thread that we sell. I'm going to use a set of pricking irons. And since this is 2 to 3 ounce leather, I realize that there's lots of folks that'll tell you that, you know, pricking irons are just for marking holes, but 2 to 3 ounce leather, we're going to go ahead and go all the way through, so that we don't have to follow it up with an awl and take up a whole day just to sew a little zipper in. I think I'll go ahead and run I'm not going to do a stitch groove in this, but I am going to do a guideline here. That I have a hard time sometimes with the groovers. You know, this is kind of a flimsy, floppy piece of leather, as far as being able to be rigid and stiff and run that stitch groover accurately around it. And I would rather just mark my line with a wing divider than I would mess it up with a stitch groover. So, gonna go ahead and run this wing divider around here. I'm running it about 1/8 of an inch on the inside of the or on the outside of the cut out. And then that leaves me about 1/8 of an inch to the edge of the zipper ribbon also, to make sure that it's good and accurate. Because you don't, you know, you are sewing the zipper into it, so you don't want to run off the side of the zipper ribbon, because then you're not sewing anything to it. Now you're just sewing for the fun of it. And I don't know too many people that hand stitch just for the fun of it. Okay, I'm going to kind of get this started, and then I'm going to pause the video because you don't want to watch me sit here for 30 minutes and hand stitch this one seam. But I am going to get it started on the video so that you can see how I'm doing it here. I'm going to take my pricking irons here. I'm using an 8 stitches per inch. I probably could very easily use a 7, would work just fine. Yeah. I'll set it right there on that line, and I'm going to give it a tap. A couple of taps. All right. I'll pull it out, move it down, make sure it's nice and straight on the line. Do it again. I will be saddle stitching this. I find that it's pretty much the best stitch you can do when you're hand stitching, depending on the application. Of course, there are some times that it won't be the right stitch, but for this, saddle stitch is going to work great. It's going to look great, and it's going to be an awesome project. So again, I'm going to go ahead and pause the video, and we'll come back once this is sewn around. All right. So in the course of what seemed like 2 seconds for you was about 35 minutes for me. I went ahead and sewed that zipper in. All right. So trim my thread tails here. I'm using this red thread because I just really think it looks good with this color of leather. I went all the way around the zipper. Okay, you can see what the back side of it looks like there. They're pretty good. There's one little spot in there I'm not proud of, but hopefully that'll be on the back side once it's all installed. Okay, so next what we need to do is we need to attach your zippered piece to this regular pocket here. Okay, and how we're going to do that is we are going to, well, let's back up just a second here. We need to figure something out about this wallet, and what it is we need to figure out which side we want the zippered pouch to be on and which side we want the cards to be on. And honestly, it doesn't matter. It's ambidextrous. It can be built either way, but this is decision-making time on this. So if the cards end up on this side over here, then the zippered pouch needs to be on this side over here. Okay, and the reason that it matters all of a sudden is because you want the zipper to be facing up. Okay, when it's in someone's pocket, you want the zipper to be up at the top, not down at the bottom. So yeah, so that's why we're making this decision at this point in time. Again, it doesn't really matter which way you do it. One of the things that's awesome about why we made this wallet the way we did is because we want the cards to face inwards and not facing up like the regular Roper style. Reason is because those cards will never fall out of this wallet. Like they'll never come loose. They'll never whatever. Even if the wallet fell out of the pocket, the cards are going to stay in it because there's nowhere for them to go. That's one of the biggest things about a biker wallet. Biker wallets normally hang from a chain, so that if that came out of the pocket, then it would just be dangling down there and it wouldn't get lost on the highway somewhere. Well, this ensures that everything won't fall out of it if it's dangling from its chain. So, again, it doesn't really matter which way you do it, but this is the time you have to commit to one way or the other. So I'm basically going to leave it up to my hand sewing here and decide which side I like more. I think this side looks a little bit nicer. So what we'll do is we're going to put it this way. All right. So the reason that it matters right now is because this piece is going to sew to this piece using that U-shaped line that you drew earlier. So once these two pieces are sewn together using that line, that creates kind of an accordion style gusset to where this pocket actually can come out a little bit, so that when you unzip it and open it, it can pull away like that. But we have to sew these two pieces together before we can do anything else now. So what I'm going to do is I don't want to use tape or glue because I don't want the tape or glue to be seen anywhere. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a couple of these little binder clips here, and I'm just going to hold these two pieces together so that I can put all my stitches, my stitched lines and everything in it, or, punch my stitching holes. And then I'm going to hand sew that right quick. The other thing I'm going to do when we go to pause the video again is I'm going to sew down this line right here at the very top of the card pocket so that it folds over really nicely and it has a good seam to it, and because that's going to be a pocket for cash and stuff like that up underneath it. So I'm going to sew down that line and I'm going to sew these two pieces together. But like I said, I'm going to show off a little bit more of how we do this before I pause the video. And actually, you know what? We're gonna do something else first, right quick. We need to burnish the top edge of this, just so that it looks nice. Okay, so I'm gonna grab this number 2 Montana edger, and I'll just barely take a tiny bit off of that. All right, one side. Okay, let me grab some dye and some Ron's Edge Rub right quick, and we're going to get this part done up. Just a second here. I'll pause the video while I search for the colors I want. All right, so I now have a dauber. I am looking for a lighter. I show this on a lot of my videos, but basically I've got this giant dauber, but I need to daub or put dye on just that edge right there. And I don't, if the dauber is too big and too fuzzy, then it's just going to get dye everywhere. So what I'm going to do is burn it. If you live in a small place, apartment or whatever, or you just can't stand the smell of burnt carpet, you may want to do this outside. But I'm going to burn it down a good bit. All right, now it looks like a burnt marshmallow. So what I have to do is go over to the trash can and just knock all that charring off. I'm going to give it a second to cool down because, some of that has turned to liquid when it melted. So I'm going to knock all that charring off. And then what I'll have is a nice dauber that is much smaller and easier to manage and accurately place the die where I want it. So there it is now. It is a little bit off color, but that's okay. I'm using brown dye, so who gives a dang. This is Angelus medium brown dye. I didn't want to use the dark because when you're burnishing an edge, dark brown pretty much looks black. Medium brown pretty much looks dark brown. It's just how burnishing works. So get a little bit of it on here, and then I'll just lightly get it on the edge, and then we'll burnish the edge. This right here is the reason I love the English bridle leather. Again, it's vegetable tanned, just like your tooling leather is. So the edges will burnish very, very nicely. And that's a huge thing for me. If it doesn't have that nice clean edge, it just doesn't impress me. And if it doesn't impress me, it's not going to impress my customer or my friend that I'm making something for or whatever. All right. So I did that. Now I'm going to take a tiny bit of Ron's Edge rub here. Get that excess off of there. Wipe it on. And I'm just going to burnish. Just rub it briskly until it's nice and shiny here, and then we'll move on. I'm doing this before I sew this to the other piece just because it's a lot easier to dye and burnish when it's not right up against another piece of leather. So we will end up doing pretty much all the edges on this wallet, but this one it's time to do it now before we put it together. I'm going to do a braided cord for this wallet. Basically a braided wallet chain, I guess you could say, that matches it and everything. I want to use the same color English bridle and do the braiding and everything. Most likely I'll do all that for a video too, but I just don't know when I'm going to get to it. We have our open house this weekend, and I still have one more video I'd like to make this week for another template set before we get that far. Okay, so again, we have to decide, which side we're going to have it on, and then the zipper has to be facing up. All right, so since it's going to be on this side, zipper facing up, that means this pocket is going to go under there, just like that. All right, so again, I'm going to get my clamps out, my little binder clips, just like I had a while ago, and I'm going to clip the bottom. I'm going to clip this one grain side to grain side, so finish side to finish side, basically. All right, and I'm going to stitch that U shape right there. That stitch will never be seen unless someone opens the zippered pocket or the back pocket and looks inside of it. It's not something that's seen on the outside of the wallet, so it doesn't have to be perfect. I actually, you could even go and use like a larger stitches per inch or something just to get it done quicker. But yeah, it's not going to be visible at all. So yeah, what I'll do is I'll use my pricking irons and go ahead and punch those holes right there and stitch that together while we pause the video. But I also want to, once this is folded in half, I'm going to put a nice little crease right there. Let me get my roller out. Put a nice little crease right there because I'm going to sew that line down too, and that's going to complete that pocket. Probably shouldn't be doing this over the wallet back because that'll drive the back into the cutting surface and put little lines and stuff on it where the cutting surface has little lines. Again, this is 2 to 3 ounce leather here. It's probably closer to that 3 mark. It's a little bit thicker than what I sometimes use on wallets, but it'll be all right. It's going to be a great wallet. This one's going to be one of those that I'm going to have to resist the temptation to put it in my own pocket. So I'm going to sew this line down right here, this folded line, about 1/8 of an inch in or so. And then I'm going to sew where we just talked about on this pocket right here. And when we come back, when I come back to the video, those will be done. And then we'll start the final assembly of the wallet. Alrighty. So we sewed those two lines down. We sewed that one right there. I also went ahead and just glued the edges. I used contact cement and glued the edges of it together. When you use the contact cement, you do have to be very careful just to be on the very edge. You don't want that to seep into your whatever material you used in there to hold your cards. And then I also went ahead and sewed this line right here, which was to sew that pocket to this zippered pocket here. Now what we have to do is we're going to contact cement the zippered pocket closed, and we're going to have to sew all the way around it, being careful not to sew it to the piece that's underneath it. Okay, so it's going to get a little hairy right here along this bottom, but we're going to have to sew this together without sewing this one to it. It's not going to be the easiest thing in the world, but it's going to make it to where it does what we need it to, which is then it has that accordion style gusset that this thing can be opened up and it's not just flat up against the wallet. So that's what we're going to do next. I'm going to put a little bit of contact cement on 3 sides here, and I'm going to pinch it closed and get to sewing that thing. Alright, let's put some paper down when I use the contact cement because it's messy. And all I'm going to do, like I said, is I'm just going to put it right around the edges where the stitches themselves will be, because I'm not trying to make the pocket any smaller than it already is going to be. So I don't want to accidentally like glue parts of it shut. So just a 1/8 of an inch or so, 3/16 maybe from the edge. I probably should have stitch grooved around it before I did this, but I'll have to do that now. Once I've got it closed up, I'll have to stitch groove around it. My bad. I should have done that first. All right. Shut that lid there and give this a couple of seconds here. This contact cement doesn't take too long to set up. So. All right. When I fold this closed, I want to make sure that the pieces of the zipper are inside the pocket. I don't want them stuck into the sew line, because then it you will get a very good burnish there with a piece of fabric type material in there. So other than that, I'm just matching up the ends and pressing down here. Okay, once again, I'm pressing in the ribbon part of the zipper just to make sure it's inside there and not part of my sew line. I'm going to unzip it a little bit so I've got a little bit more flexibility here. All right, my paper out of the way. Grab my rubber board here. And I'm going to, I'll stitch groove this first, and then I will punch the holes. going to be a little bit tricky up here on the top. I'm going to go kind of easy on it there where that fold is. This is the new Berry King stitch groover. We just started carrying a, in my other videos you'd see I was using a Bob Douglas Versa groover, which it's a good tool, but I really like the handle on the Berry King one. Makes it a lot easier to hold, a lot easier to control. Other than that, they are kind of the very similar tools. They both cut the same way and all that. So okay, there's my stitch groove, and I'm going to go through here and I'm going to punch my holes. And again, I got to be careful while I do it because I don't want them to be punched through all the layers. I just need to sew the zippered pouch closed without sewing it to that back piece back there. So just like that, I'm going to go all the way around it, punching my holes. I'm not going to make you watch because this video is already just over an hour, and I do try to keep these videos to where you're not having to sit in front of your computer all day. But I'll pause it, and when we come back, this will be hand sewn, and then it'll be time for final assembly. All right, so we have now sewn the top part of that down, and then we went around and sewed the zipper pocket together. The next thing I'll do is I will go ahead and I'll sand and burnish the edges of just the zippered pocket. But first I wanted to show a little trick I picked up once. When I'm cutting the strings off of my project, a lot of folks will cut them and then burn them down and stuff like that. One of the ways I found that you may not have to do that is I'll take this scalpel and lay it right up against the string, and I won't move the scalpel back and forth because then you risk cutting a good stitch or cutting the leather. But I will take the thread and just wiggle it back and forth against the scalpel, and it'll cut it right there at the level of the leather. So it's a really nice way to finish off these threads when you're done hand sewing or any kind of sewing. All right. So like I said, I'm going to go ahead and burnish this edge right here. I don't have to burnish it yet. It could just be part of the sanding and burnishing at the very end. But I do try to do it per the layer if I can, just because it's a little bit easier. I won't have to have as many things to worry about accidentally hitting with my dauber and things like that. So I'm going to sand and then burnish that edge, and then again we're gonna move on to final assembly right after that. Okay, so now the zippered pouch is completely burnished and ready to go. And so when the wallet goes together, it will look on the inside like this. The zippered pouch will be on this side, zipper facing up, and the card pocket will be on this side. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and, well, in a few minutes I'll contact cement right around the edges of those two, and then I'm going to run the pricking irons all the way around and sew it together. But there's a couple of things we need to do first. One of them is we need to set the snap. The snap will be hidden behind one of these pockets, so you don't want to put it together and then try to set your snap afterward. So we got to go ahead and do that. Here I have a line 24 snap. I was really hoping that I had a big concho snap, because a big concho sure would look good right here on this this area. But I don't have a concho with a snap attachment. The only ones I have here are screwbacks. But I do have one of these Buffalo nickel snaps, so I'll use that, and that'll work for this. I did line this piece. Basically, I took some of the same leather. I just took a leg piece that wasn't really that pretty, ran it through the splitter till it was just paper thin, and then I put it on the inside of this. If you want to line this, I honestly would probably, if I were going to do it again, I would just make the entire thing out of 2 to 3 ounce and do that liner in 2 to 3 ounce, as well as the wallet back. And then you'd still have a nice, kind of rugged and thick exterior piece, but you don't need a splitter to do it that way. So that would be the good news, is then you could make the entire wallet out of 2 to 3 ounce. So anyway, to set this snap, I need to punch these holes. They're in only the top layer. They're not in the lining layer yet. So I need to go ahead and punch those right quick, and then I'm going to set that snap right quick. It's not the right size punch. Somewhere in this mess. One of my issues when I start a project is tools just keep collecting. Appears as if I actually put this one away, which is not very much like me at all. So I'm going to go ahead and set this snap, and then, like I said, we will put the whole thing together. Use my Barry King snap setters here. These things are absolutely awesome. If you haven't seen our video on how these work, they are some cool tools. Yeah. So this side of the snap is going to be the button and the post. Put it on this hard surface, not on that cutting board. Put the setter over it here. Drop the pin in. Actually, I'll move this over all the way to the stone instead of the cutting mat. Good and set. All right, now this buffalo head side, I'm going to do a little differently. I don't want to crush the buffalo head up against the tooling surface, so I will set this one on the cutting mat instead. And actually, you know what? I'm kind of leading y'all astray. You know what I'm going to do very first thing is I'm going to go ahead and stitch groove around this while it's flat and while it will set flat. If I put the snap in there first, then that area won't stay flat, and it'll be difficult to get a good groove all the way around it. So let me stitch groove around it right quick, and then I'll come back and do that. Got my stitch groover still set on the same measurement it was for the pockets on the inside. You don't want to change that. You want it to stay consistent. It's always fun to run a stitch groover around something that's rounded. Long straight things, of course, are pretty easy, but contoured surfaces are something a little different. And if you don't get it to run well around it, then it'll look kind of choppy. So far, I'm not doing that great of a job. And of course, you want to be careful when the groove comes all the way back around to itself, you want to make sure it perfectly lines up with itself. So, did a decent job of that at least. All right, so now I'm going to finish setting that snap, and then we will move on to finishing this sucker up. I do want to make sure, of course, that my buffalo head is facing up. And so, sorry about that. Phone's ringing there. Not sure who that is, but I will call them back. All right, I'm going to turn my snap setter over. All right, I've got a good set. That's good. Okay. So now we're going to cement it together, but we need to pay attention to one more little detail here. Right here. Right here, this edge is not going to be able to be burnished once the final wallet is put together. Just that little bit of edge right there. Okay, so what we need to do is we need to just, I'll mark it, that edge off with my fingernail, and I'm just going to burnish that tiny little part of an edge so that we can make sure it gets a nice little bit of dye and a nice burnish as well, so that the whole wallet has that professional appearance we've been talking about the entire time. So I'm not going to round the edge off because it won't need that being up against something else flat, but it does need a tiny bit of dye, and then it does need slicking so that it doesn't look rough compared to the rest of the edges of the wallet. All right. All right, so that'll be enough right there for it. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take my fingernail and kind of mark where this pocket comes up to so that I'll know where to stop using the contact cement when I put the liner or the interior pieces in. So again, I'm just using my fingernail and try to get rid of that shadow if I can. Didn't work too good. Using my fingernail, and I'm just marking right there where the top of that pocket is so that we can see it. And then I'll do the same thing on the other side. So there it is. I've just got a couple of fingernail marks right there. The other thing I'm going to do right quick is I'm going to go ahead and use my my pricking irons around this area right here before the entire thing's put together, so that I can it'll be a little bit easier to do those areas. I'm going to go ahead and turn off the video for that just because it's going to take a while. I'll have to use the 2-prong quite a bit around this, and so it will take a few. So I'm going to pause the video again. Okay, so that did take a few minutes getting that that area right there punched out. So what we're going to do is, again, we're going to put the glue, the contact cement, on the insides here, and we'll put the contact cement on these, and we'll stick it all together and get it ready to do our final stitching. So let me grab my gluing paper here. You ever good when a hole punches before? All right. Go ahead and do these little pieces first, get them out of the way. Again, I'm just trying to get it on about 1/8 of an inch on the outside. I just need to hold it together to stitch. And then, of course, that also makes better burnished edges when the edges are sealed all the way to the outside with the contact cement. All right, there's that one. Especially on this one where you're going to have the zippered pouch to work around when you're sewing. You want to make dang sure and get all that nice and glued in, because you don't want it to pull apart while you're trying to work with the different layers there. All right, set that one aside now. I'll fold my gluing paper in half so I don't get glue on my wallet back here. All right, and again, I made those little marks right there, right there, right there, and right there with my fingernails, so I would know where not to put glue. And I'll start working my way around. And again, you don't have to line this wallet if you're building it at a 4 to 6 ounce or whatever. I had some ugly leather, and I have the ability to split it down to paper thin with that splitter over there. So I went ahead and did it on this one. This area right here, that piece of leather is going to come straight across there, and I am going to glue it down. And I'm probably going to stitch it, but I just hadn't decided yet until I get the rest of these stitches on there. If I get a really good adhesion with the contact cement, I may not. I just hadn't decided yet. All right, I'm going to turn that to where it faces up like it ought to, so I get my pockets right. lot of wallets. This one might be my favorite one yet. I was telling Janie a while ago it's going to be really hard not to put this one in my truck or my pocket when I'm done with it. But I need one to display in the stores. So. All right, so there it is. I'm not going to go ahead and, as much as I want to fold it over and snap it and everything, I'm not going to until it's done being sewn together and everything. But now I'm going to take my pricking irons and run all the way around and sew that, and we'll come back again. All right. So I finished the stitching all the way around the perimeter of the wallet here. So it's pretty much put together. Now it's time to finish burnishing up the edges and everything. Fold it over for the first time and snap it. I have decided that I'm going to replace the snap that I put on this. I'm just going to go ahead and order a larger, like a concho style snap. The little buffalo head just doesn't do it any justice. So I will do that later on, but I wanted to get this video out today. As you can tell, I had me a die accident. That happens all the time. Anyway, but I just was, while I sit here and do my edge burnishing and everything, I was going to kind of discuss a couple of things that I don't think I mentioned yet. One, I did not put any kind of a hole or anything like that for the chain attachment for this wallet. And the reason I didn't is because there's just a billion ways to do that. The most popular would be just punching a large hole right in the center of the wallet there, kind of where it folds, and putting a grommet there. While that is the most popular and easiest route to go, it's also one of the easiest ones to screw up as far as not screwing it up when you install it. But as the wearer wears it and everything, that is a huge point for wear, that it'll wear out. And I've had a lot of people bring me biker wallets over the years asking if I could replace that grommet because it gets ripped out. So therefore, it's not exactly my favorite way to do it. One of my favorites is I do have some tiny little D-rings, and I like to take a piece of leather and sew right here that would hold that tiny little D-ring, and then of course your chain could attach to that. I could still do that. I actually would sew it this way to where the D would be sitting on there and would flop back up and down like this. So I can still do that. There's enough room there to do that. And that's most likely what I'm going to do, but I also hadn't figured out how I want to finish off the chain for this yet, so I'm just kind of left my options open. So yeah, other than that, like I said, I'm just finishing up my edges here and get it good and burnished, and then this wallet is done. As soon as I get these edges beveled here, I will. I'm using a Ron's Edger number 3 on the thicker parts of the wallet, and then the number 2 on the thinner parts where it's only 1 or 2 layers. So as soon as I get this edge beveling done, though, I will close it and put the latch on it, or the snap and everything, so I can show it to the video. And then I'll stop this video because it is now 1 hour and 24 minutes long. Started this video at 8 o'clock this morning. It is I do run a business here too, so of course I've had to stop for a lot of things. Anyway, it is now 8 o'clock at night, and I'm just now getting this thing finished up. So anyway, so there it is. All right, your cards all go here. The zipper works really well. Okay, so there's a zippered pocket right there. There's a regular pocket right there, and then you could even put a card or something like that in this little area, or maybe some emergency cash or something like that in that area where the U shape was sewn. Of course, that's a pocket right behind there. And when we close it up, we'll put the snap on it. There we go. There's what it looks like. I will get it nice and molded and folded tonight after I finish my burnishing. And yeah, I'm extremely happy with everything except for that there button. But again, I'm going to replace that later. I'll just drill that one out and I'll put a better one on it. Something that kind of matches that size a little bit better. So anyway, appreciate you watching this. By the time this video is uploaded, the template set will be available online. So thank you for watching, and thank you all for your continued support for Makers Leather Supply. Have a great night. Make it with Makers.